Welcome back, everyone. We're still here at the Alpena County Sheriff's Office. I'm now joined with Alpena County Commissioner Mary Hess and Under Sheriff Terry King. Thank you so much for both being here today.
Thank you, Bethany.
So can you start off telling me a little bit about the committee that you both are involved in that are looking to make these changes to the building?
Do you want to start? Or?
The committee that we have represents a couple of county commissioners, city council individuals, citizens at large, the sheriff and I, and a couple of our corrections officers, our jail administrator, and that is basically the bulk of our committee.
So now we obviously had just seen the building, the structures that need fixing. Are the plans to, Sheriff Kaliszewski mentioned, to get rid of the building? You guys want to rebuild on maybe different property?
If I could, I believe it is time for a new jail, and there's some reasons why. Under the law, Bethany, it states that the county shall, in the county, provide a suitable and sufficient jail, and we have to keep it in good repair, and it is at our cost and expense. This jail was built in 1956, so it's 60 years old. The newest part of it was built in the 80s, so it's 30, that part is even 30 plus years. Lots has changed since then. I know that as I have come on the commission, that we have the sheriff or the undersheriff pretty regularly coming to us because something needs to be fixed out here. And it's my opinion, there's only so many band-aids you can put on something that is in this condition before to me, we're just spending good money after bad. Mm-hmm. And I really think for the safety of our community, we really need to look at moving forward in a serious way with constructing a new jail. And we're at the very, very initial stages of that. There's a lot of things we have to do, and there have been prior commissioners, prior people, committees that have dealt with this question, but for whatever reason it got dropped, it didn't get pursued, and there may very well come a time after your tour where the state comes in and says, close your doors, your jail is not in good repair. Mm-hmm. And I really hope that doesn't happen, but I just think we're much wiser if we spend now and do it right rather than wait for it to be crunch time and we're told you must do this or it will close.
So you mentioned this is in the preliminary stages. What have some of the conversation been, looking forward? Sheriff Kaliszewski mentioned pods, different things like that. Has anyone expressed interest in buying the property and kind of being involved in this as well?
We're at our preliminary stages of everything, so there's a lot of talk going on both ways. I know currently our hospital, Mid-Michigan, is very interested in the property here. Nothing's been discussed further than that as far as cost or what they were going to do with the property. Of course, that wouldn't be up to us, but that is something that we will be doing, that we will be starting shortly. Our biggest goal right now is try to figure out a plan to build a new jail, and most importantly, where to put the new jail. We have that committee that I described earlier will be discussing various different options, not necessarily in the city, around the city limits, in that area around Alpena Township.
So anything specific with the structure itself? I know you had mentioned before in a previous interview that you might be doing a study to kind of discover how big the building needs to be, how many beds you need. Are you still going to go forward with that type of a study?
We are. Whatever contractor that we decide to go with, or the company itself, we have a couple of different companies that are interested in doing this project. they are going to be doing a feasibility study. And that feasibility study will talk about what we do currently, how we do things, the size of our jail, future expectations, future growth of the city, future growth of the township. And they're going to combine all that, and they may come back and say, you need a 100-bed facility or a 120-bed facility. We don't know. So we know we need something bigger than we have currently, but that is something they will decide, and they'll take in consideration what we want is possibility of a additional of 911, something to do with juvenile detention, to hold juveniles that also break the law and get arrested. We have to have a holdover facility for them. And we're also looking at the possibility of incorporating all that with our courts. So we're all in one building or adjacent buildings.
And your thoughts, Mary?
My thoughts are very, very similar to Under Sheriff King's. I think you have to go in phases. I think the purchase of a piece of property of land that is large enough to expand in the future beyond a new jail would be in the county's best interest. If we start initially then with focusing on the new jail, then you get to the type and structure you want, and pod, that type of structure seems to be what they're recommending now as a best scenario case. As the undersheriff said, I think we need to look beyond just a new jail though too, because our 911 system right now, they're busting at the seams, Bethany. It seems to me it's time to really focus on some long-range planning, and let's get the piece of property now that we want for a new jail, but also that we can expand in the future. Another would be the animal control building. We need something so we can properly take care of that situation. The Sheriff's Department needs a secured building that they can put seized evidence in. They could store the snowmobiles, the boat. So that's what I say. There is more, but it's long-range planning, and the first step should be, in my opinion, a new jail. But any plan we come up with, as Undersheriff was saying, we have to have that approved by the state before we can even enter into contracts or request bids. And until we get that to that stage. So there's a number of things that we need to look at even before that. And it's going to be educating the public. The public needs to be aware of how important it is to have this facility. It isn't just about housing the inmates, it also is about the safety of our community. And there are certain standards we have to meet to do that. And I know there are some folks out there that say, well, once you're arrested, you know, why do you need all these extra things? The studies have shown, and I think probably Undersheriff would agree, for the correction staff that are here, the more you have inmates involved in things, the less chance you have of them becoming disruptive, bad behavior. There's a reason for that. They're in a confined area. And I think that's important when you look at the situations and the services we're providing them. We have to look at a piece of land, it may not have water and sewer on it yet. That's another cost. We have to be concerned about a big enough kitchen with appropriate facilities in that to serve the inmates. You know, we're responsible for feeding them when they're in here. We're responsible to have good hygiene, or at least the ability to have good hygiene for them. And these are minimal standards. You know, I don't believe the sheriff has ever said that let's just shoot for the minimal. I mean, you still have rights and they're entitled to that, and that does save our taxpayers down the road, because if something happens and they're under our care and custody, and it was because of negligence on our part, or maybe we didn't have an appropriate, maybe there was a disruption between two inmates and we didn't handle it appropriately, or we did, but because we didn't have maybe a taser on hand or something like that. we're just lucky we haven't had to pay out any lawsuits for infringing on inmates' rights that they have. And I'll tell you, courts generally don't consider lack of money for not having something as a reason that you can violate an inmate's rights. In the end, I guess what I would say to you, Bethany, is that I'm not saying that our current jail is crumbling down around us, but it's starting to.
It's close.
So, of course, you had mentioned these are the preliminary stages, so I'm sure there's a lot more that we can go into, and I'm sure we will in the future. So thank you again so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to tune in next week for another edition of Insights.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. If you have any comments, suggestions, or topics you would like to see on a future show, please email WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.